This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Case IH. Coming up this weekend, yes, we are ready for Farm Progress. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the broadcast here. Mr. Pearson, you're ready to go, aren't you?
I sure am, Max.
I know this should surprise no one. Chad Colby was able to get a peek at the showgrounds before we will.
I was able to get my drone up, and as you can see yourself, there's a lot of activity here. Talking to a few people, lots of enthusiasm, great weather. Everybody's looking forward to next week's show.
We'll be back to Chad to get more in just a few minutes here. Right now, I want to take you to the panhandle of Texas, to Dimmitt, Texas, where Todd and Nancy Whalen are heard on the radio every day, KDHN, the Twister. It started raining down there, we noticed.
Yeah, we got the coffee cup full of rain just for you, Max.
Yeah. It started raining Saturday morning, and oh boy, was it nice. It was during our farmers market, and rained Saturday all the way through Sunday, and even a little bit Monday morning. And it was very welcome rain. For as much as it rained, we only got between 1 3/4 and 2 inches out of the whole thing.
But unlike the nickname for your station, the Twister, this was not severe weather. This was just a nice, gentle soaker, right?
Yes, it was a gentle, steady rain. It was really what we needed. As dry as it is, the last thing we needed was a heavy downpour that would just wash away. But the rain totals varied all over the area. Some people about 30 miles east of us got over 3 inches. And then people south of us, some didn't get any, and maybe up to a ½ inch. So it really varied widely around around the panhandle.
Yeah, sadly, it's too late to help a lot of people out on the farm, isn't it, Todd?
Yeah, pretty much, Max. The cotton farmers are looking for next spring, and a lot of the wheat farmers are ready to get the drill going for the fall wheat crop. It's been a disaster here this summer as far as temperatures and blowing hot winds, and it's just, you couldn't keep up on irrigation demand.
Down toward the southern part of the state, the cotton is not as bad from what we hear. It's okay down there, right?
Yeah, we talked to Dr. John Robinson every Friday from Texas A&M. He's the cotton specialist there. He said a lot of the cotton down south finally is looking pretty good, but they had a real dry spell down there too, and so it was kind of up in the air how that crop was going to be. But so far it looks pretty good for South Texas. But most of the cotton in the country is right here in this southwest panhandle area. So it's going to be a tough fall, and it's going to be a short ginning season, I think.
Yeah, you're just a little bit northwest of Lubbock, southwest of Amarillo, east of Clovis about an hour. We hope you can recover from a tough summer such as you've had there. Nancy and Todd, we appreciate it so much. We'll talk to you another day.
Got your cup for you.
Thanks,
All right.
Max.
We'll stop in sometime. The Whalens at KDHN, Dimmitt, Texas. And as we look forward to the Farm Progress Show next week, one of the stops we'll make is the Bayer exhibit. Jennifer Ralston visited with me about that the other day, about their research commitment at Bayer, the fact that it's almost as large in soybeans now as it has been in corn.
That is correct. As you know, corn is our #1 crop, but soybeans are #2 for us here at Bayer Crop Science. We lead the industry in investments in R&D at around $2 billion a year globally, which is double our next closest competitor. As you mentioned, corn is #1, but soybeans are #2. Huge crop for us around the world, and one that we expect to continue to grow as the global demand for protein for the livestock industry grows to feed a hungry planet. So important opportunity for us to continue to develop higher yielding soy, more efficient production systems for our customers.
How about a few more specifics on what Bayer is covering in that research?
Yeah, so I think in North America, we're primarily focused on 2 key areas, one of them being yield. Growers always want more yield. That's how they get paid, and it's incredibly important, even from a sustainability standpoint, to improve that yield on a per acre basis. #2 is weed management. Biggest challenge, again, growers face today in the US is managing difficult to control weeds and resistant weeds. So we focus a lot of our R&D on herbicide tolerance, as well as new herbicides to go along with those herbicide tolerance traits.
You know, it's interesting to hear you talk about yield through the years as we've watched it. There have been times when that bean yield has plateaued, it seems, but we're keeping it climbing, and it's great to hear that Bayer is devoting attention to that by all means to keep those yields moving on up, so crucial to the producers. What can we expect over the next decade or so? Can you give us a peek into the crystal ball?
So just last year, 2021, we expanded our Extend crop system by launching the Extend Flex trait. Extend Flex has tolerance to 3 herbicides. So added, in addition to dicamba and glyphosate tolerance, added tolerance to the herbicide glufosinate. So more choices for our growers to manage those difficult weeds. In the coming years, we have 2 new herbicide tolerance trait packages that we'll be launching. Roughly 26-27 time frame, we'll be launching 2 additional tolerances, which will bring the total to 5 different herbicides that our soybean systems will be tolerant to. And those new herbicides will be 2,4-D and mesotrione. Again, mesotrione, one of the most commonly used herbicides in corn today, highly effective for managing difficult weeds. And the next generation will add tolerance to a new mode of action, and that's the PPO family of herbicides. So continuing to develop new tools for our farmers to manage those difficult to control weeds.
It's exciting to see how that partnership can grow in the future with producers. It's not just a matter of buy the package and move on, is it?
No, I think for 2 reasons. Every farm is different, their cropping systems are different, and growers need different tools to really optimize how they manage weeds on their farm. Secondly, in terms of resistance management and integrated weed management, the best plan is to use different herbicides in your rotation, whether it's between corn or soy or in multiple years of soybeans, continuous soybean systems. So again, having more tools helps you manage those weeds and helps prevent the development of new resistant weeds.
I wonder if they don't want just X or Y. Will there still be something for those producers?
Yeah, we'll continue to offer different trait packages available to our customers in the near term and in the longer term, and more importantly, many different herbicide choices that they have to go along with those different traits. So we'll have lots of different breeding options, varieties that perform in a different way, different herbicide tolerance trait packages, and then a set of herbicides to go along with these. So unique systems that will enable growers to choose which products work best for them on their farm.
Plan to visit with the folks at Bayer at the Farm Progress Show, and you can go to their website, roundupreadyextend.com.
This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone Ag. The Firestone Ag Dealer Network offers you the support, inventory, and resources you need. Visit firestoneag.com to find your local certified dealer. It's time to talk markets. Brian Splitt, co-founder of agmarket.net, joins us. And this week, Brian, a lot of folks are talking crop yields as those crop tours go on across the country. Have your expectations of yields changed at all after this week?
I think it's changed everybody's expectation of yield, Mike. Our own Betsy Gibbon was on the tour with one of our branch offices, and hearing very early Monday morning that you had scouts in the field that were seeing plants that did not produce an ear, so that was alarming. We saw South Dakota really underperform expectations. Then we had Illinois, for example. USDA's at 203, and the tour came out at just above 190. So that's a big change. That might be a little over a bushel per acre on a national yield just from Illinois if that comes to fruition.
And Brian, we saw the market react as these yield reports were being released. We saw some strength this week in the corn market. Does that continue, do you think, as we head in towards harvest?
I think overall you're going to continue to see dips bought. I think that we have likely seen what would be considered the fall low already made in July. The market just cannot handle a reduction in the crop size like this, especially when you have a producer, Ukraine, not being able to export what they typically would be. So their exports are running less than half, and so we're going to see the U.S. have to make up for that shortfall as we go into the end of the year.
And Brian, are we seeing that demand come in? Are foreign buyers looking to the U.S.? Are exports starting to tick up in the corn side?
Not quite yet. Okay, the soybean market is where we're seeing, I think, the 4th best deck of business for exports, just behind 2020, 2013, and 2014.
That is huge. On the soybean side, again, we're looking at yield, but it is still a little early. How do you think the market's interpreting the data we're seeing this week?
The market doesn't seem to be quite as excited about soybeans as it has corn. So if you think about soybean futures, we've kind of retested some highs that were made in June and in late July. We haven't been able to get through those, whereas the corn market took out the August report high, then it took out the July monthly high, which was made the day before report. So the corn market seems to be taking a lot more notice to the results in the crop tour than the soybean market at this point.
Well, while we're speaking of soybeans, looking at the demand side, China has been a massive buyer over the past couple of years. Are they starting to step back into the U.S. market in a bigger way?
So we talked about that fourth best book for exports, and then this is also the time of year seasonally where we should see foreign buyers start to become a little bit more aggressive. So I think we've got a very good program over the next couple of months. Now my concern is going to be as we get into early 2023 because of the projections for the Brazilian crop. And we don't know if the crop's going to get in timely. We don't know if they're going to have another drought. Some are talking about a third La Nina cycle. But if they do, we're going to have a 150 plus million ton crop, which is going to be 22% bigger than the estimate of our current U.S. crop, and their exports are projected to be about 92 million tons, which is 36% more than our export projection. So I'm concerned about our soybean export program as we go into 2023.
All right, lots of things to watch on the global scene as agriculture is a global market. We'll be back for more with Brian Splitt from agmarket.net. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone Ag. Harvey Firestone invented the first pneumatic farm tire, forever changing what it means to farm hard. Visit firestoneag.com to learn more about this history and tire solutions for today. We're back talking markets with Brian Splitt, co-founder at agmarket.net. And Brian, we talked about the supply and demand fundamentals. I got to ask you about price. This corn market, what's your next target level for some sales?
Okay, so what we've done so far is we've retraced about half of the whole move from the contract high in May to the July low. And that's at the highs made thus far. Next target's going to be up around the 680 area. You've got the 100-day moving average there. You've got the June low on June 1st of 682. So that's going to be the next target. There is still a gap up there at 728.25. I think you're going to have to see the market really bite into the idea that this crop is way shorter than expected to see that target hit.
Downside risk, if this rally should start to close, where are you watching on the downside?
I'm going to have some stealth stops below yesterday's low. So if D's corn gets below 650, I think that suggests that we're stalling out after this run. We've seen a nearly 70-cent gain from the lows last week. And we did gap higher from Monday to Tuesday's session. That gap would fill at 631. The 200-day moving average is at 630. So there's a lot going on down in that vicinity. The uptrend is going to come in around the 620 area. All
right, Brian, let's turn our focus over to soybeans. Same story, still have some production risk ahead of them. How does that change your target price for making sales?
So right now, when you look at soybeans, we continue to falter around the 62% retracement. So contract high May, July lows, we've retraced 62% of that. So this 1480 area has been a really tough level of resistance. If this market starts to falter, and it's already starting to do that, we've taken out the lows from the previous session. So now we're looking at the idea of going back down to $14. That's about the uptrend. The 200-day moving average is at 1402. And I think the market may gravitate kind of towards what you call the scene of the crime, right? Where did this explosive rally start? If it starts to falter, it'll probably go right back down to that area.
All right, Brian, we are gearing up for harvest across the country. Wheat growers have been harvesting for a while. Diesel prices are making some folks take notice. Diesel market, where do you think it's going to head as we get into the gut shot of harvest?
Well, the problem we're seeing right now, and the administration is talking a lot about fuel prices, and they're talking about as the consumer is looking at it, and that's gas, right? When you look at gasoline prices, it's been mostly sideways for the last month to slightly lower. Diesel fuel, which is your heating oil futures, have gone from $3.15 a gallon early in the month, now over $4 a gallon. So unfortunately, we're not getting relief for the producer. And from the consumer perspective, that is, we're not getting relief from the transportation of all the products that we use day to day. So that's going to be a problem. And then don't forget natural gas. We're looking at natural gas traded just over $10 here recently. Next major objective is 13. When you look at natural gas values in Europe, it's a big problem. And that is going to cut into ethanol plant margins. It's going to make it more expensive for drying costs this fall. So that's something you also have to pay attention to.
Are you filling up diesel tanks on the farm right now, Brian? Is that how you're going to play this, do you think, into the end of the harvest?
So one of the things, it's tough for the producer to make a play on the board to hedge unless they're willing to use futures. And so what you probably need to do is go ahead and get your needs booked. If you're concerned about the general economy faltering, then maybe you just buy some puts in crude oil, because if we do see the general economy falter, we're going to see energy values deflate altogether. And you can use options in crude oil where you cannot use that in heating oil.
Good to know. Brian Splitt, co-founder, agmarket.net. Thanks for joining us.
Chad Colby's look at agriculture technology comes your way next, brought to you by the IBM Watson Decision Platform, combining AI with Internet of Things data to help agribusiness increase yields, improve quality, and drive sustainability. Well, of course, he had to get a peek at the show site at Boone, Iowa before the rest of us. Let's see what Chad saw.
In our tech segment this week, we have a special guest, Willie Vogt, editorial director at Farm Progress. I wanted to get his take on what you might see in terms of technology at this year's Farm Progress Show.
We're at Boone for the first time in 4 years. A lot on the radar from the standpoint of some of the smaller startups that are here. We've got some interesting stuff going on over at Farm Next by Pivot Bio, which is all kinds of new startups that we've talked about before. But also we talk about the autonomy sector. I've seen some interesting things I can't really talk about, but they'll be ready to be viewed on Tuesday. That's for sure. Behind me, this tractor, this Axion tractor, which is now in the market. Kloss is marketing it. And farther along is the new Trion combine. Trion and that Tri is for 3 things, and they'll tell you about that, but it's related to what customers need. It's not bigger, it's smaller, but has the same tech as the bigger machines.
Willie, one thing I've noticed even this week being over here as the show's getting prepared, I've seen some equipment with my eyes for the first time other than in print. Talk a little bit about some of the equipment that's going to be out in public that you can look at for the first time.
Well, obviously over at Case IH, they've got their new planter and new air drill and that new sprayer with the whole new nose, which if you go on Twitter, you can see some other kind of teasing things, but what they've got here is that new sprayer. I've heard there's a new Guardian sprayer at New Holland. I haven't had a chance to look at that, but that's a big deal. Also, they're in the same area this year, which is a change.
One last thing, talk a little bit about the Varied Industry tent. They're packed, they're sold out. That's going to be a place to really make sure you don't miss this year.
Well, that is the kind of place I like to go through to find the guy that I'm going to be buying something from next, because there's a lot of little spaces, but a lot of companies. We've got like Solomtex in there. They're a robot company. Yeah, they'll be in the autonomy, but they're introducing something new I can't say anything about, and they'll be in there. And then you go through that tent and you see people you don't see very often. You may only see them at this show. And what the neat thing that's exciting about that is we did put a new floor on that tent. It's got asphalt now, and we're excited about that. Cut the ribbon on that this week as we got ready for the show. So it's just, the air of excitement is really building here, and it's very exciting, and I can't wait to be at the show live on Tuesday.
We look forward to seeing you there as well. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
All right, young man, we'll count on seeing you, Mr. Colby, at the Farm Progress Show at Boone. We've enjoyed sharing with you over the past few weeks those innovations, those inventions from Farm Next as they were previewed this summer. That effort of Pivot Bio, well, they'll be on display at the Farm Progress Show too, but we wanted to share with you the last 2 in that series. It's a company called Phosphalutions, trying to deal with that problem of runoff of phosphorus, keeping that valuable resource in the field, in the plant where it's needed, and not in the waterways.
I'm Hunter Swisher. I'm the CEO and founder of Phosphalutions. Fertilizer is expensive and very inefficient, and our whole approach is to try to maximize the use of those fertilizers to drive better farmer profitability. We started with our first product line, Rhizosorb, which we incorporate into conventional fertilizer sources to produce a higher efficiency product that delivers more of the phosphorus into the plant and less into the environment. The thing I'm most excited for about Rhizosorb is the opportunity to return more of those dollars into the farmer's pocket than down in the waterways. We use a mineral-based adsorbent that has a high surface area that allows us to bind phosphate to the surface in the soil and store it until it releases back into the solution over time. The value that our technology provides is the opportunity to improve the efficiency on the farm field to get the same yield with less inputs. Unlike nitrogen, phosphorus is a finite resource. We mine it similar to petroleum in just a few select geographies around the world, and we're running out of it at a pretty alarming rate. This is a global food security risk. About 10 to 30% of it is actually ever getting into the crop. 90% is lost from mine to fork. pretty alarming when you think about the fact that this is the second largest nutrient needed for global food production. So for us, the focus is trying to get more of the fertilizer into the crop so that less of it needs to be applied to achieve the same productivity on an acre. We can change agriculture with Rhizosorb. We're the only proven technology on the market to be able to reduce 50% of phosphorus use. Managing phosphorus more efficiently isn't just better for the bottom line, but it also has the potential to improve soil health as well as plant growth. We've seen with our product we can increase water use efficiency, promote better root development, and a long other list of plant growth benefits. We've been very fortunate to be able to get our technology out into the hands of the farmers over the last few years, testing this in some very academic settings, but also in some real-life commercial trials, and we're on track to launch this product in spring of 2023. Phosphorus is an industry primed for innovation, and we've been working on this for over 30 years. We can improve profitability and make farming more sustainable with Rhizosorb. I think the farmers are looking for solutions, and I think the farmers are willing to take on new solutions, and I think there's a huge appetite for agricultural technologies like ours.
Phosphalutions, it's called. Now, this next one, I have to tell you, is probably my personal favorite. A young man out of college has developed this. Corral is what it's called. It's a way of having a fence out there without having a fence out there.
Hi, I'm Jack Keating. I'm the CEO and founder of Corral Technologies. The inspiration for Corral Technologies came from my dad and I going out to fix fence one day, and he said, why don't we have invisible fences for dogs but for cows? Within the Corral Technologies system, we have a collar and also the software. The collar goes onto the cow, and that collar provides stimulation to keep that cow inside of the boundary and move them from pasture to pasture and get the data for that cow's health. Now, the software is where you actually are a majority of the time, viewing where that cow is, drawing your fences, sending move functions, and being able to really manage your operation. What we're enabling is the easy access to rotational grazing for ranchers. Instead of having to go and put up miles of fence, you're now able to draw these cross fences at the touch of a button. From continuous grazing, where your utilization rate was around 35%, we're now able to bump that up to 65% or above, allowing these cows to actually eat more of the grass that's in the pasture. The biggest benefit we provide for ranchers is actually increasing the number of cows they carry per acre. And then there's plenty of other benefits, from gains for your calves to time savings and material savings on the fencing side, to where you're not spending multiple days at a time every year fixing fence and putting in fence. You can now draw that fence at ease and have the peace of mind those cows are going to stay. There's a wide variety of ranchers out there that would benefit from the system, from large-scale producers with over 2,000 head all the way down to smaller-scale ranchers with only 50 cows. From Canada to Ireland to Mexico, we've talked to over 200 producers. They want to use the system, they want to be able to draw these fences, and it's just wonderful to be able to see that. The mission and the value of Corral is to increase ranchers' profits with less work. Being able to take the weight off of their shoulders a little bit, say, okay, now you can draw this fence at the touch of a button instead of spending a day building it and thousands of dollars building it, is really where I view the potential. I'm extremely passionate about agriculture because my family's in it. My family is raising cows and want to help my family live a better life, and hopefully my dad, who just turned 60 last year, he's able to do it for a lot longer because that's his dream. So if I can help him do that for as long as possible and help other ranchers across the world follow their dream, that's what we're trying to accomplish.
I have to tell you, that's my personal favorite indeed. Jack Keating's fence that isn't really a fence, but you go right on the device and you put the fence where it needs to be. What a great answer for rotational grazing out there. The late Bob Evans would have liked that. Yeah, as in the Bob Evans restaurants. That's a story I'll tell you sometime. The week that he called me to complain about the fact that Orion and I weren't talking enough about rotational grazing here on our show. Oh, FarmNext.com, by the way, to get more information on all of those adventures featured in the Farm Next series. And make it a plan of yours to go to Pivot Bio at the Farm Progress Show, right there between 3rd and 4th Streets along North Avenue, the northwest side of the show grounds. And right behind it, you'll find the Farm Next exhibit. There's more coming up on This Week in Agribusiness. Stay right here with us, please. This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Case IH.
Welcome back, folks. Thanks for making the time to join us here this weekend. Max, Farm Progress is coming up. One of my favorite things at the Farm Progress Show is getting face-to-face with folks.
You know, I have so many great stories, I know that will shock you, but from all of the years of the Farm Progress Show, all of the people we've met, and you'll get a better handle on crop conditions over a wide swath of the heart of America after those face-to-face interactions with growers. And they'll level with you if they've got a good crop at home. They might be a little shy and sheepish about it. And of course, you'll know if things didn't go as well.
That's the truth. And one of the great things about This Week in Agribusiness is you have those conversations on farms, don't you?
We do get out to quite a few farms. I've enjoyed that over the years in the Plant Smart, Grow Smart series. And back earlier this year, we were out with Justin Weber on his farm near Geneseo, Illinois, and the subject was weeds. Weed pressures. What do you face here? What are some of the challenges you have, and how difficult is the resistance problem that so many growers are facing?
Some of our biggest weed issues are burr cucumber, which was brought in years ago, and so we do battle that in our fields. It will overtake, the corn and pull it down, making it very difficult to harvest. So we do have to manage that. Sometimes we have to do a late season spray if we start to see it come through. Any herbicide we use, we need residual there to keep those from coming up. We also, water hemp has been a problem in the past, especially at our Joslin farm where along the Rock River. We always had a lot more weed pressure with water hemp.
I was visiting with a friend of mine in Indiana a couple of weeks ago on his farm, and I looked out there and I saw some weeds out there. I said, I didn't think you tolerated that kind of stuff. He said, you won't see it tomorrow. What's your approach? I mean, do you take a zero tolerance approach to weeds?
We like to think it's zero tolerance, because if you leave anything there originally, then it's only going to get worse as the season progresses. So the products that we use, we want them to be effective and to work right away. We'd like to see those results and be able to walk back in the field a week later and say, that was successful, we got them. So our post-spraying corn, we use Armstrong Pro. We sprayed about 2 weeks ago, the corn, and we've been back in our fields, and we've had a lot of success with that.
On your soybean acres, what's your approach to weed control there? How do you take care of the problem there?
We do a pre-emergence herbicide. We use Verdict on all our acres, and that allows us to not have to worry about getting right back in to spray those beans right away, because we're spraying corn, we're side dressing corn, so we're not always able to get in and spray those beans right away. So we want a residual there, because we don't want to have to be going out in that bean field multiple times. We want to have a product out there that is long lasting and can control those weeds from coming up.
I've known folks in Henry County, Illinois for a long time. There seems to be quite a conservation land care ethic here, as I've sensed it. Am I accurate there?
That's right. I mean, ultimately, we have to live off of this land, and so we want to take good care of it. Part of that is, when you think about herbicides and fertilizer and all the things that you do, that's why if you're going to be out there, you want to make sure that what you're doing and what you're using is effective, so you don't have to be out there any more than you have to.
You can see more of our visit and other episodes in our series as you go to the website plantsmartgrowsmart.com. We're very thankful for the involvement of BASF. Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead, presented by Pivot BioProven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot BioProven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com. When we get ready for the Farm Progress Show each year, I usually go in search of my poncho, just in case I'm going to need it. Now, Greg, especially at Boone, it seems over the years there have been these pop-up showers at Boone, more likely there than at Decatur, Illinois. This week?
Better and getting better. We'll take a look at Iowa and Boone here in just a moment. But in the meantime, it's a parade of systems on the maps and charts and a compression of that hot ridge. So temperatures coming on down, along with the fire threat with a thunderstorm potential as well. But maybe some meaningful rainfall in just a couple of spots. Otherwise, here is the upper level ridge still across the northern and central Rockies. Still some lingering heat and a couple of storm clusters scattered across the Dakotas. We will see kind of a flattening, if you will, will. Jet stream winds kind of sinking southward, more of an onshore flow west to east. And yeah, nice drop off on temperatures that have been running 95 to 105 into some of these valley locales of Washington State and Oregon, but pushing that back 40 to maturity and some rapid harvest. But there'll be a couple of showers, probably mountain areas, and ultimately a change to more seasonal temperatures across the northern plains. The hot weather getting suppressed to the Four Corners and points on southward. And at the same time, that robust monsoon setup over the southwestern states easing up a bit as well. That was the story last week, should be the story this week, with a return to more seasonal temperatures across the valleys of California. Yeah, may dot a thunderstorm or two. And this is seasonal heat, not necessarily this 100 to 105 degree weather. And the dry time over the west end and south end of the Cotton Belt appreciated, but there still may be the usual pop-up shower thunderstorm there into the afternoon and evening hours. We'll get this front to zip along and maybe a little scattered moisture for the plains, cooler up towards the panhandle of Nebraska, a couple of thunderstorms scattered Oklahoma and Texas, and a pretty quiet setup, and the heat continues on into the valleys of California as well, Max, for the middle and late portions of the week.
What about down through the central part of the country? As we heard earlier from Nancy and Todd, Dimmitt, Texas, they did get some. Finally, get some rain.
And kind of a weird rain, because you normally expect severe weather, didn't happen, or a tropical feature, a remnant feature that will at times make its way out of the Gulf into parts of Texas. And by the way, it is a wet outlook. You'll see that coming up in the extended outlook. Here we go. Farm progress early in the week. This is primarily Monday. Showers and thunderstorms across the northern and western Corn Belt. Seasonal heat and humidity into the eastern belt. Note the cooler air and a little buckling southwest to northeast movement on the weather systems that now turn northwest to southeast. Cooler, drier weather. There may be a lingering shower at farm progress at Boone here Tuesday. Then Wednesday, Thursday, 80 to 85 daytime, upper 50s and low 60s tonight. Very comfortable for the farm progress showing across a wide area of the Corn Belt as well. The heat getting suppressed south with maybe a thunderstorm back west and south of the Missouri River. Yeah, wet weather ongoing, flooding down here. The tropics are getting a little busy across the Gulf. Note the warmth and the humidity and kind of a stalled out frontal boundary along the jet stream pattern, the edge of it, and that means a lifting mechanism. And the showers and thunderstorms are back into play across parts of Texas, south end of the Cotton Belt, and the pressures are lowering in the Gulf of Mexico, Max, so maybe some tropical rains of what should be over the next 10 to 15 days, a wet pattern, but drought easing rains for the southern plains.
Well, let's get a good look at the eastern part of the country. How does the northeast shape up?
Okay, and that front across the Corn Belt is on the move here out of the northern and western sections early to middle parts of the week. Drought monitor here over last week had some extreme areas of drought through southern New England, but we'll get into first some heat and humidity, and then the front, which is on the move, will generate and a good buckling in the upper air pattern, some widespread drought easing, showers and thunderstorms into the northeast New England. Lake moisture here. There's colder air up north of the St. Lawrence, maybe up towards Hudson Bay, James Bay, the first frost or freeze expected. Cooler, drier weather for the middle and late portions of the week across the Corn Belt. Flooding down through Texas, the Gulf Coast. Active weather pattern with a series of disturbances and lows along these frontal boundaries. Pressures are lowering in the Gulf, nothing in the Atlantic, but it's a wet pattern for central and south Texas and across Bayou country here later on into the week.
Greg Solier is back with his extended farm weather forecast for the country, presented by Pivot Bio-Proven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot Bio-Proven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com. We asked Greg to give us a little farther view now, looking on into the month of September. First of all, the precip this week. Where will it be and how much?
And once again, generally focused on the southern plains, down through the deep south and southeastern portions of the country. Some additional drought relief, but it comes at a price again with these stalled boundaries, disturbances tracking along it. So at least another inch or two into Oklahoma, much of the Cotton Belt, and points to the east and southeast from tropical rains with some lowering pressures here and a disturbance that may again not name but accentuate some of the heavy rainfall potential and flooding central and south Texas. Otherwise, 1/4 to 1/2 inch across the Corn Belt. This is primarily early in the week across farm progress, and as the week wears on into the northeast of New England, pretty quiet across the southern Canadian prairie, widely scattered 1/4 to 1/2 inch Pacific Northwest, and perhaps a couple of downpours too, and an easing of the monsoon pattern in the southwest.
Well, the week of September 5th, Labor Day week, we get ready to move on into fall. You hang up your Speedo for the year and What does it look
goodness. My goodness, that's a horrifying thought. But not the weather maps and charts, at least. If you're looking for some heat to push the back 40 to maturity, here it is. Jet stream arcing up across the Canadian prairie. Clouds, tropical moisture, rains will keep readings below average over the deep south, southeastern states, and the eastern United States get some, again, additional drought relief. Mostly dry weather across the northern and western Corn Belt, the Plain States areas, and the tropics. Again, maybe not necessarily named or a prolific hurricane or tropical storm, but will accentuate the downpours over the deep south, dry weather into the Pacific Northwest and California too.
The week of September 12th through the 18th will be at Grand Island, Nebraska. That show runs, of course, there the 13th through the 15th. Husker Harvest Days. Will it be warm?
Probably warmer than it will be at Farm Progress, with temperatures still capable of maybe 90-degree weather or even higher, with this, again, upper level ridge over this particular part of the country. Moisture down here in a normal temperature pattern west to east from California into the eastern states. And speaking of moisture, high and dry over at Grand Island. A little return to the monsoon moisture across the southwestern sections of the country. Tropics a little busy down here, maybe some merging and phasing over the eastern seaboard. There'll be some storm clusters up towards the Sioux, back across areas of the Black Hills and westward. High and dry weather as the week wears on.
Well, how do you see the week of September 19th with fall officially arriving?
Yeah, well, you know what? Not much fall on the maps and charts. Basically just a return to more seasonal temperatures across the upper Midwest, western sections of the Corn Belt. That hot ridge kind of retrograding back to the west over the northern and central Rockies. So some good news there. And there's a trend towards some cooler weather. Remember, we've been talking about when these systems come out of the Atlantic and they merge up with the polar jet stream, you tend to pull down some Canadian air. So there's a likelihood of a push of cooler to colder air, maybe up north of the St. Lawrence, some frost and freeze. Temperatures a bit below average because of clouds and moisture over Texas and the deep south and southeastern states. And again, tropics finally getting ramped up here, coming across the Atlantic basin in through Florida. There may be a feature here over the southeastern sections of the country, down across areas of Texas too, and we'll tap into that monsoon setup, and showers and thunderstorms will be widespread there. The jet stream in northwest to southeast, so we're back into dry time across much of the western Corn Belt, central plains areas. Wet weather up the eastern seaboard is good, and as well across areas of the southern Canadian prairie, northern Rockies, and the Pacific Northwest. So fall begins, and there's really no sign of any fall weather coming. Matter of fact, the rest of the summertime season, a trend towards, as you see, warmer, generally drier, and a fall season that will extend probably into the early part of winter. Winter Max is going to be very busy. Looks like an active one and stormy one across much of the heartland.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, spotlighting another great American tractor.
It was a tractor they made for 10 years at Allis-Chalmers. They made quite a few of them, the D17. I'll talk about it this weekend at Max's Tractor Shed, brought to you by Store Lock Tool Cabinets. Yes, indeed. They'll be at the Farm Progress Show at Boone, Iowa. They will have an array of cabinets with them, so you can see them in person. You can put your hands on those drawers and see how they slide. Lean up against the cabinet, see how solid they are. And before you get to the show, look over the line of what they have at storelock.com. Well, every now and then I hear from Dick in California who says, why don't we see more Allis-Chalmers tractors on there? Well, quite frankly, we put on what is submitted to us. And if you want to submit an Allis-Chalmers in the future or any other model, we don't care, whatever the color, whatever the brand is, you can just send it to me, max.armstrong@farmprogress.com. Okay? Or you can direct message me on Twitter at Max Armstrong. But the D17 was made for a period of a decade, actually from 1957 to 1967, and this is a 1959 model. The D17, you know, I think they made somewhere in the neighborhood of more than 85,000 of them altogether. And take a look at the close-up shots here on Dwight Olson's D17 from Northern Illinois. Get some good close-ups when you take the pictures of your tractor. Zero in on parts of it so we can see the great restoration you've done, or just the way you've left it through the years. So there you go, Dick in L.A. and Allis-Chalmers from Maple Park, Illinois, made 63 years ago. There's a big iron display to be at the Farm Progress Show. Let's see what the report is this week from those folks.
Well, Max, we're going to be at Farm Progress in Boone, Iowa, and we've got a lot of auctions taking place this week. One of them is the Roy and Barbara Johnson retirement sale from Penfield, Illinois. Boy, do they have nice tractors. A 2013 John Deere 8235R with 2,580 hours. They've got a 2009 John Deere 8130 mechanical front tractor with 2,827 hours. They've got a 2010 Kinsey 3600 Series 1632 vacuum planter. There's a 2012 John Deere S660 combine with 1,559 hours on the separator. This is well cared for equipment selling on August the 31st. In Colorado, Kansas, Galen Whedon Estate features a New Holland TM 150 tractor and a 1997 New Holland TR88 combine. Stanley Evans is retiring from Decatur, Illinois. They've got a 1986 Deutz Alice 6260 tractor, got a John Deere 724 mulch finisher. They've got a Klaus Lexion 570R four-wheel drive combine. And while you're at Boone, Iowa, check out the 156 collector tractors that will sell on September 1st. Several tractors will be parked at the Big Iron Sullivan lot in Boone, Iowa. Stop by and shake the hands of the Big Iron and Sullivan personnel to plan your land or machinery auction this fall.
And now it's time to meet another one of agriculture's emerging leaders. This week, we're meeting Tristan Burks. Tristan just completed her year of service as the Kentucky FFA State Sentinel. And Tristan, thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about your year as State Sentinel. Tristan, what was the highlight for you?
The highlight of my year had to be state convention in June. Seeing the sea of blue jackets with Kentucky FFA on the back of them, commemorating our year of service with my teammates, but also cheering on all the members and their accomplishments that they made throughout the year. FFA is basically one big family, and it was fun to celebrate that year.
Tristan, FFA is one big family, and what was it those years ago that made you want to join FFA and become a part of that family?
So growing up, my mom and my dad were both in FFA, and seeing my brother go through the organization as well. At first, I was a little hesitant and didn't necessarily want to join FFA, but I told my parents I would go freshman year, take the first year, get my FFA jacket, and that's it. Turns out my brother said I got bit by the FFA bug, and I stuck with it and joined leadership positions and had just a blast.
Tristan, what were some of your experiences in high school that really fired you up about FFA and participation?
So meeting new people was one big aspect. I remember going to compete in the FFA Creed Regional Day, and I was standing next to someone who I didn't know would become my best friend then. We were both nervously waiting to go into the speech room, but bonding over the nerves and over the organization itself, that the meeting and bonding with people is what made me continue to have a fire in me for FFA. And throughout state officer year, it was so fun making new connections with members and seeing the old connections I made before.
That is fantastic, Tristan, and I understand you are just beginning your sophomore year at Western Kentucky University and hope to remain in the world of education. Is that right?
Correct.
Fantastic.
So
well, we wish you the absolute best as your plans move forward. Tristan Burks, past FFA State Sentinel for Kentucky.
It's this time of the year every year. We hear from so many friends reaching out to us saying, hey, we have a question for you about the Farm Progress show. I bet you've heard from old buddies in the past.
Oh, certainly. On the internet and in person. People are curious, Max. They want to come.
Yeah, and we're more than happy to answer some of the questions here this weekend.
Absolutely. People are curious about the concert. Lee Bryce is going to be there again. What's it cost to go to that?
Yeah, there's no additional charge to get in there. When you pay to get into the Farm Progress show site, that gives you your admission to that show, 5:30 on Wednesday afternoon.
Admission. What does that cost? What's the ticket go for?
Well, the ticket price is $20, $10 for that age range of, I believe it is 13 to 17. It's $10
Okay.
and then 12 and younger, you're free.
All right, you can bring the whole family to Farm Progress, but can you feed them, Max? What's the food option?
Well, it's getting better all the time. There's a great steak sandwich now. The Boone County Cattlemen, you can tell I've dined with them in the past. They've got about a $15 package there where you get the chips and the sandwich and a drink, and there are a bunch of other clubs too that have good food, including breakfast out there.
That's a great point. If you're there early, you want to see the stuff running in the field, Max. When do demonstrations happen?
Yeah, the corn combine demonstrations are 11 o'clock each day, and then the tillage tools run at 2 in the afternoon. I'm proud to be the voice of the demonstrations this year.
All right, well, here, Max Armstrong. And scooters, golf carts, transportation.
You can bring your own golf cart. You need to register it at that west entrance where the golf carts are. There are none available. They're all booked up for rental at the show, but you can come in on a scooter if that's the only way you can get around, and the smooth surfaces will enable you to do so, especially in that new surface of the VIT tent.
A lot of upgrades happening. Finally, how can folks keep track of what is happening at Farm Progress?
Yeah, you can go to Twitter, of course. There's a Farm Progress Show Twitter handle there, FP Show, and you can also go to their Facebook page. There's a Facebook page for Farm Progress Show, and streamed there each day of the show will be our noon show from the Wallace's Farmer Hospitality Tent. I want to mention one more thing. I hope folks will come by and join us there. I've had some cards printed up with the help of some friends. My old buddy John Costello, the pride of Delmer, Iowa, and Keith Murphy, who's in the printing business in the western suburbs of Chicago, printed these. The Suicide Farm Crisis Line cards, 988 cards, and it has the website also, farmstateofmind.org. Great resources at that website. I guess it's my hope that folks would take these, maybe put the card in the desk drawer, and maybe take one of these cards out to the machine shed, or maybe put one at the grain elevator or at the farm machinery dealership. Someone might be needing it sometime.
Max, where can folks find those with you at the show?
Wallace's Hospitality Tent there each day of the show. Hope you'll come and join us at the Farm Progress Show. We'll see you here next weekend. So long, everyone. Closed captioning for This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Kubota. Shape your world. This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Case IH. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by Omax Communications in association with 22 Creative Group. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.